overall last week was not too bad. I got 7 out of 9, probably dropped one that was 50-50, other one that I think most people would have got wrong. I got Adelaide over Carlton. I just thought Adelaide being, they're up and about, they did so well and they just ran away with it in the end. Fremantle definitely, I don't think they should have won that one at all. Gold Coast had that one in the bag at halftime and then somehow dropped the ball and ended up losing. Sydney Swans, I thought they're just much better outfit than Richmond. I think they're going to struggle this year. Brisbane Lions obviously should have beaten North Melbourne, and they did very convincingly in the end. And man, Lachie Neale, he is a superstar returning back home. Great to see. I think this is the one that most people would have got wrong. I picked Melbourne over Essendon. I think most people would have done the same. But Essendon played really, really well. They just didn't let Melbourne get the ball that much, and they were totally dominant. In very wet weather footy, Port beat Western Bulldogs. I actually thought Western Bulldogs probably would have been better in the wet. But yeah, Port Adelaide proved me wrong. They did really well. Geelong just had to win that game against West Coast, and they did. It was a pretty boring game to watch. I was there at the Oval watching that game, and then watching the Collingwood and St Kilda game as well at Adelaide Oval. I was watching the GWS and Hawthorn game. I honestly thought Hawks were going to get it. I thought that was a pretty bold pick. I was the only one at work who picked that one. Unfortunately, it did not work. It was very close, but just didn't get the job done. And Collingwood should have beaten Saints by quite a bit more, I reckon. But Saints came back and it was an absolute thriller in the end, which was great to see. Moving on to round 6. I think this one's going to be pretty interesting. Dogs were pretty disappointing last week against Port. And Freo also only just got the win against Gold Coast. They just let up way too many points in the first half. I don't think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. Both teams seem to be low-scoring. But being at Optus Stadium, I think Freo should have the upper hand. I think it's going to be close, as you can tell by the odds, but I reckon it's going to be pretty close. But I think Freo will win, and I reckon they'll win by 8 points. Again, Port Adelaide, I mean, they're $1.06. Not that we talk too much about the odds, but it just proves that Port Adelaide should, being at home. They don't have to travel. West Coast Eagles, they are just looking for anyone to play for them at the moment. They're just bringing everyone in from the reserves, even so much so that Will Schofield has to come back from retirement to fill in at the Waffle. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but yeah, it's not good signs for West Coast Eagles. I think we could almost give them the wooden spoon now. I think Port Adelaide will win this one by probably about 55 points. Next one here, I think GWS Giants were very lucky to get the win against Hawks. Both of these two teams played at different grounds, not the Adelaide Oval. I think Brisbane Lions were a lot more convincing in their win. I think they'll win this again, and I think they'll win by about 23 points. Now, this one will be pretty interesting to see if Geelong can actually start to string together some wins. I think they are a much better team, obviously playing at home. If this was played at the SCG, I think I would be picking the Swans, but purely at home, Geelong are pretty good. I think Geelong will win this one. I think it's going to be pretty close, low scoring. Don't quote me on it, but I reckon Geelong will win by about 11 points. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Hawks were able to beat Adelaide. Adelaide are obviously on a bit of a run, but it wouldn't take too much, I think, to sort of derail them if they get a heap of points put against them in the early stages of the game. I think the Crows so far are a bit of a momentum team, so once they're up, they just keep going, but we haven't really seen what they're like when they're down by 30, 40 points. Can they chip away at that lead and come back and win with all that hype that they've done in the last 3 weeks? But Hawks have just been so unconvincing. I think Hawthorn I think it's a race between them and West Coast Eagles for wooden spooners this year. Adelaide are quite surprising, my team, but very surprising that they are in the 8 at the moment. I know it's only round 5, but I think they've played really well. The brand of footy that they're playing is very exciting and very good to watch. If they can keep that up in the dominance that they had against Carlton, I reckon they could be a top 4 team. But do we see that week in and week out from the Adelaide Crows? Most likely not. I think the Crows will win this by about 18 points. The next one, I think Carlton are a better team than St Kilda. I haven't actually seen if there's too many injuries from Carlton. St Kilda, they played all right against Collingwood. They did in the last quarter. They came back quite a bit, which was good to see. I think Carlton getting flogged by the Crows will hopefully send them a message. They have been off to an alright start this year, but St Kilda obviously off to a very good start this year. I just think Carlton are still a little bit better of a team, but I'm not sure. This one, I think it really could go either way, but I think Carlton will win this one by about 8 points. Gold Coast lost against Freo. They probably shouldn't have, in my opinion. I think they should have held on to that lead or extended it and won the game. But in the end, they just didn't do enough. North Melbourne were just absolutely run over by the much better team in the Brisbane Lions. And I think Gold Coast will win this one. I think it's going to be another very slow and high contested possession game. I think there's going to be plenty of turnovers, but I think Gold Coast will win this by about 20 points. Now, I don't know if Richmond have to start looking at doing a rebuild session. I don't know. They had the draw in the first week, a win in the second, and then 3 losses in a row, and now coming up against Melbourne, who obviously lost against Essendon. But I think Melbourne are a much better team overall, much more dangerous in the forward line, and they move the ball a lot faster. Richmond are still pretty fast at moving the ball, but the Sydney Swans were just all over Richmond last week, and they just fell apart in the fourth quarter. The Swans, I don't know how many goals the Swans put on them in the last quarter, but it was pretty great to see. I think Melbourne will win this one by about 30 points. And lastly, the beautiful Anzac Day game. This one's going to be awesome to watch again because we have a second versus third match, which is always awesome to see. I think Collingwood are still a much better team. They do lose Adams from suspension, but so Essendon also lose Zach Merritt. It'll be interesting to see. This one's always a good game. I don't think it really matters where they are on the leaderboard. Sort of like the showdown between Adelaide and Port Adelaide. Doesn't matter where they are on the ladder. These two teams will always put up a fight. I think the Pies just have a bit of an upper hand against Essendon at the moment. I'm really looking forward to this game, but I think Collingwood will win this one. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think it's probably going to be about 12 points. And now my fantasy team. Man, there was just so many players on my team that just did not perform. Ollie Florent obviously had a flyer the week before. This week was very, very average. Ruben Gimby, fair enough, he got subbed out. He did get pretty harsh poke in the eye, and also studs up from Dangerfield. Nothing to see here, guys. Don't worry about it. Callum Mills being my captain. I mean, what's that, 91? It's just not good enough from your captain. John Newcomb went off, which I kind of expected, but it's about time he started pulling his weight a little bit. James Aish, disappointing. Horn Francis was okay. Willem Drew, very disappointing. And then we had people like Oscar McInerney, 50 points. That's just not good enough. We had Aaron Norton, 52. Isaac Rankin, 62. Cam Zerha, 25. Like, it was just overall, this was a terrible round for me. I have to make some changes. My score 1638 was absolutely terrible. I reckon I was almost last in the league ranking for this week's ranking. It was just, absolute shocker. I'm going to have to move some people around. Just maybe, after all, Callum Mills, how much money have I lost? 123,000 on Callum Mills over the year. That is not good. So I think I'm going to have to make some changes. I'm going to have to drop Callum Mills, sub him in for someone who is hopefully going to make me some money. Disappointing to see, but I'm getting flogged. 36 out of 47. I suck at this. Anyway, thanks for watching.